Chapter 940. Dustless's pupils were dead and somewhat horrifying, able to swallow the human mind. This group of people, the Navy, is really shameless. Wuchen raised his eyebrows and said indifferently. His eyes fell on the indignant Sengoku and Garp. Dustless's murderous intent was awe-inspiring. Since they can cut off their past relationship, Dustless can do the same. Gravity soared, tiger. An incomparably domineering slash swept over. The power of the slash was so great that it caused people to feel despair. The slash was imbued with the power of gravity, and wherever it went, it left behind a mess. The ground was sliced apart as easily as tofu, leaving behind a fissure that was tens of meters deep. It swept toward Dustless with the momentum of crushing dry weeds and smashing rotten wood. "You're just a loser, but you're so arrogant." Dustless naturally wouldn't choose to sit still. Chakra in his body was surging, and a very dangerous wave floated out of Dustless's body. "Don't even think about it." Sengoku's body shone brighter than the sun, and his body expanded rapidly, turning into a sacred and solemn Buddha. His palm condensed in impact and aimed at Dustless. Garp and Akainu looked at each other, each showing their magical power. Haki and their respective abilities bloomed with the power to destroy the world. The colorful light was shining, revealing the power to destroy the world. Without exception, the target was Dustless. Boom, boom, boom. Dustless's location was subjected to countless powerful attacks and was instantly flattened. All the buildings in Dressrosa also turned into nothingness. Even the pirates fighting nearby were involved in it, and their bodies were not left behind. Caw, caw, caw. A huge roar sounded, and a crack that stretched for countless meters spread rapidly, swallowing the entire Dressrosa, and the island that had been passed down for thousands of years or even longer collapsed in the blink of an eye. Divided into two. Such a powerful attack, even if he is immortal. Sengoku's voice hasn't fallen yet, and the void condensed a dazzling light, and Dustless's body recovered. Not only that, but it was accompanied by a flash of light that penetrated all things. Yasukani no Magatama. Extremely dense rays of light blotted out the sky and covered the earth. Cold light flickered, far sharper than blade light. Furthermore, they were abnormally hot. There was simply no way to evade the torrential rain of light. Almost half of Dressrosa had been torn to shreds. "Leave it to me." Under the perception of observation Haki, the exaggerated attack was detected by Fujitora. The tachi in his hand gently tapped on the ground, and a miraculous scene was instantly staged. The ruined buildings on the ground completely ignored the existence of gravity. They slowly rose into the air and finally floated in midair. Boom, boom, boom. A lot of smoke and dust splashed in the sky, and the flashes crushed all the ruins. The Marines on the ground were safe and sound and were saved by Fujitora's ability. "Since I'm going to wreak havoc, I might as well do it thoroughly." Seeing that his attack was blocked, Dustless's eyes became even colder. His body emitted a golden light, and the incomplete Kansusanu enveloped his body. He stared at the island beneath his feet with contempt in his eyes. Tingai quaking star. In an instant, the clear sky turned incomparably dark. This strange scene stunned everyone, and they all looked up at the sky at the same time. In the depths of the clouds, a huge meteorite about 15 kilometers in diameter slowly fell. Its range covered the entire Dressrosa. Everyone's face was dispirited, and the dead silence was replaced by shock. Jeppo, moonwalk. In the crowd, an untimely laugh resounded through the sky, and then a broad figure rose from the ground. Compared with the meteorite, this person's thin body was obviously not worth mentioning. But no one dared to look down on him, and Dustless was no exception. "This old thing. Where is this Jeppo, moonwalk? It can be counted as flying." Dustless's tone was somewhat stunned. The person who rose into the sky and swept toward the super-large meteorite was the marine hero Garp. It was completely like a rocket piercing the sky, not like Jeppo, moonwalk, at all. Boom boom boom. How Shikuhaki rolled and raged, and for the first time in decades, Garp showed his full strength. Under this monstrous momentum, the falling meteorites in the void strangely stopped for a few seconds, as if they were held by a big hand without substance. Looking around, the earth was dark, as if the whole world was covered with a transparent gauze curtain, dim and dark. Under everyone's surprised gaze, the dark iron fist blasted toward the meteorite that was enough to destroy the world. Caw caw caw. The slowly falling meteorite made a crisp sound, and immediately shattered. With Garp's fist as the center, the thick and ferocious cracks spread endlessly, as thick as dozens of people stacked together. In the blink of an eye, the entire meteorite was eroded. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. A large number of fragments also peeled off, and it was as big as a marine battleship. When it hit the fragmented island, it would definitely collapse, but fortunately, it was moved into the sea by Fujitora's ability. It's not broken yet. Garp's rough old face flashed a touch of surprise. Seeing the meteorite struggling at death's door, Garp's other fist whistled up. Boom boom boom. The meteorite that destroyed Dressrosa disappeared and turned into debris all over the sky. The brilliant sun poured down, and the shadow disappeared. The Marines and pirates also breathed a sigh of relief. Just now they had half a foot in hell. You think that's it? It's not that simple. With a sneer on the corner of his mouth, the sky that was not clear for long was dark again, shrouded in despair. Looking up, a meteorite that was no worse than the previous one was coming again. Chapter 941. The island below was torn apart and turned into two halves. All the creatures looked at the exaggerated meteorite with a stunned expression. The atmosphere was dead silent. All the creatures felt that there was a big guillotine on their necks. They thought that they would be able to see the blue sky after clearing the clouds and mist, but they didn't expect to be greeted by another meteorite. Oh. Really, you young people? Hey, now you want us old people to do it, you're getting worse and worse. These words attracted everyone's attention, and they looked for the source of the sound. Everyone's eyes were focused on an old man with a mohawk. His body was wrapped with explosive muscles, and he was even stronger than Garp. The vicissitudes of his face made him appear extremely old. However, his bright and spirited eyes would occasionally reveal an oppressively sharp luster. The world government's commander-in-chief, Sky. This old man's strength has always been a mystery. Now that I can witness his strength with my own eyes, it's pretty good. In the void, Dustless smiled indifferently, looking at the meteorite falling from the sky. His eyes flashed with disapproval. The effect of dealing with the pirates with a bounty of 500 to 600 million was perfect. Dealing with Garp and Sky, these super-dimensional monsters, only served to show off their strength. Whoosh! The afterimage jumped up and rushed straight toward the meteorite falling from the sky. Even because the speed was too exaggerated, Dustless could feel the storm blowing on his face. Without exception, like Garp, his fist was swallowed by the darkness, and he pointed straight to the sky without fear. Boom boom boom. An unprecedented heavy blow blasted on the meteorite, and the powerful force destroyed the sky and the earth. In an instant, the meteorite that covered the sky was smashed, and sky disappeared from everyone's sight. Bang bang bang, in the space where there was no one, it was like someone was stepping on the air, and there was a rhythmic explosion. But if you look closely, there were no birds or beasts. Full of flaws. The afterimage that disappeared in the blink of an eye couldn't be captured by others, but Dustless's eyes could see everything at a glance. Light speed kick. The flash condensed on the tip of his foot cut through the void and blasted straight ahead. The target was the flickering afterimage. Petty tricks. As he stared at the incoming beam of light, Chief Commander Kong's figure was revealed amidst the afterimages that were moving at an extremely fast speed. He floated in the air for a short period of time in a bizarre manner. His gaze was calm and composed, and there was contempt in his eyes. A pair of arms that were several times thicker than human thighs were swallowed by armament hockey, and the power of the fist was enough to smash an island. Bang! The iron fist punched out, and the high-density flash suddenly burst and scattered in all directions. It was exceptionally easy and simple. General Kong cupped his fists and looked straight at Dustless. His tone was full of confidence. Surrender. You won't be able to escape today. However, just as he finished speaking, Dustless's ghostly voice resounded in Commander Kong's ears. It's not good to be so arrogant at your age. The sky is not suitable for a marine like you. The sea is more suitable for you. After that, Dustless's right fist was also swallowed by the deep darkness, covered with the sharpness of armament hockey, shining brightly, and even the sunlight could be reflected. Then, under everyone's astonishment, it blasted towards Kong's head. Poochie! General Kong, who was hit hard, vomited blood, and his mind was spinning. His mind was blank like a paste, and he instantly lost the ability to fight again. Put-ong! There was a loud explosion on the calm sea, and immediately a huge ripple surged, and then a water column of more than 10 meters high was set off. General Kong, who had just been confronting in the sky, evaporated. Needless to say, it was air who was blasted into the sea. You're next, Garp. Looking back indifferently, Dustless stared at Garp, who was using Jeppo, moonwalk, to occupy the void. He sneered, and countless photons appeared all over his body, and he swooped down with great momentum. The speed of light was too fast for the naked eye to catch. Found him. After a few seconds of silence, Garp's eyes shone with a cold luster. Under the perception of observation hockey, he understood the existence of Dustless, and immediately turned around and punched without hesitation. Boom! The ripples visible to the naked eye spread rapidly, and this unparalleled impact wave covered a range of more than 10 kilometers. If it was on land, it may be a one-time collision that would wipe out Dressrosa. When did this guy's armament hockey reach this level? In mid-air, Dustless and Garp's fists collided. The feeling of soreness and swelling pain from his fist made Garp a little dazed, and it was the first time in decades that he felt this way. Bang bang bang. The dull impact sounded continuously, and the ripples visible to the naked eye repelled out one after another. The sky became a forbidden area, and there were only two figures fiercely confronting each other. Good opportunity. Perceiving that Dustless showed a rare flaw, Garp's fist hit Dustless's right shoulder very craftily, and his power increased dozens of times in an instant. The fish took the bait. Seeing this, Dustless was not surprised, and his eyes went wild. Kamui. Garp's fists also inevitably hit the air when his body turned from nothingness to reality. He, who was completely unaware, instantly became a fat and beautiful lamb in Wu Chen's eyes. While Garp was distracted, a ray of golden light fell from the sky, and the localized Kansusanu's fist hit him. Chapter 942. Without warning, a huge fist fell from the sky. When Garp was hit with all his strength, he woke up from his dream and used armament hockey to defend himself. He suffered a heavy blow and his head was bleeding. Puff! Without exception, Garp also followed the footsteps of Air Commander and was blasted into the deep sea by Dustless. Go and save both of them. Akainu's face was blue and he yelled at the stunned Marines behind him. He couldn't help but curse in his heart, a group of idiots, they don't even have a little bit of eyesight. Next, a light voice filled their ears, and a figure flashed out of the ground. After I end you, this world will set foot on heaven. The line of sight revolved around the remaining high-level Marines, and the pirate side was ignored by Dustless. That group of people only cared about competing for Pluton's design blueprint. Blackbeard was already riddled with holes, and whether he could survive was a problem. Compared with the pirates, the Marines are the real enemy. Let's go together. Retired Fleet Admiral Sengoku, Admiral Tinghu, including the new Admiral Green Bull, and Akainu, everyone looked at each other and rushed to Dustless. Meteor Volcano. With a wave of his hand, it was his strongest move. A huge flaming fist rushed towards Dustless. Everything in front of the magma was burned to ashes. Dustless didn't change his face when he saw this, and his body erupted with a majestic repulsive force. Shinra Tensei. The magma near his feet was easily bounced out. The eyeballs suddenly flashed with a dazzling light. Wu Qin instinctively raised his arm to block his eyes. Taking advantage of this opportunity, an incomparably tyrannical attack came from behind. Puchi. The invisible force fluctuation couldn't be defended. It was like a shock wave without substance. It instantly hit Dustless, and his bones also made a crackling sound of destruction. Dustless was seriously injured. It worked. Sengoku said hopefully, his eager eyes were piercing. Sengoku, is your ability this kind of irresistible impact? It really worked. Glancing back at Sengoku, Dustless was calm, as if nothing had happened. He didn't even cry out in pain, which made Sengoku deeply shocked. Mysterious power gushed out of his body, the broken bones, and the injured viscera were repaired at an extremely fast speed visible to the naked eye. In just a few breaths of time, he was completely healed. This exaggerated defensive ability caused everyone's eyes to widen, and a trace of despair inevitably rose in their hearts. What kind of monster is this bastard? Is it possible that he ate hundreds of devil fruits like that pervert Blackbeard? Thinking of Dustless's thousands of abilities, Akainu felt dizzy. As long as we shatter his entire body, he will never be able to recover. A deep shout raised everyone's hope. They looked up and saw that it was Commander Kong and Garp who had crawled out from the deep sea. At this moment, both of them were in a sorry state with blood all over their bodies. That's right, let's attack him together. Akainu also shouted loudly, a one-on-one fight may not work, but if 5 or 6 people come together, their combat power will inevitably increase. It's been a long time, haven't you given up yet? Dustless shook his head and sighed, and immediately looked at the stubborn and unwilling eyes of the Marine's senior officers, and his whole body was covered with a higher density of chakra. Well, I'll let you see my true face. A nearly 200-meter golden giant wearing a Tengu armor appeared in the sky, Kensusuno complete form. The giant's head stood on the ground, and the whole world was covered by his light. His whole body was filled with the smell of ancient decay. His ancient armor had been through hundreds of battles, leaving countless traces, and the 2 long swords at his waist could cut the world. When Kensusuno complete form flashed, the whole world was silent, and the pirates and marines who were fighting with Dressrosa stopped breathing for a moment. Even the coveted Pluto King's design was forgotten. Clang! Under the control of Dustless's mind, Kensusuno complete form was unsheathed, and there was a crisp roar. When the Tachi of light was completely unsheathed, the remaining creatures of Dressrosa saw the Grim Reaper in a trance. Everyone, give up fighting for the time being, attack Royce South first, he wants to destroy us all. Durag shouted, and his tone carried the power of bewitchment. The pirates and even the marines were all influenced, and all the spearheads were aimed at Dustless. Boom! Caw caw caw, with a height of nearly 200 meters, it was not easy to move, and it immediately became the perfect target. It was surrounded and beaten violently. The exaggerated height was too big a threat, and it became the target of everyone's venting. Although Kensusuno complete form was powerful, it was not invincible. In the face of the relentless bombardment of thousands of strong people, its armor and limbs were constantly smashed. However, the incomplete cracks would be repaired by chakra gushing out of Dustless's body. When there are many ants, they can also shake the world. Dustless in Kensusuno complete form sighed, and immediately, the majestic chakra rushed out, and the 200-meter-tall body strangely became taller. Not only that, a large number of irregular golden charms filled Kansusanu's body, and whether it was defense or attack, it was a world of difference from before, and it received a dimensional upgrade. Senjutsu Kansusanu complete form. Sorry, let's part here, I'm tired of playing, let's part here. Dustless said to himself, and then his pupils twisted sharply. Tomb of Samsara Border Prison. Chapter 943. In the invisible world, dozens of figures flew out one after another. Looking closely, it was Dustless's shadows, and the number was beyond previous knowledge. There were 12 of them. It was far more than Madara's 4 shadows. This was reasonable, after all, Dustless's eye power was not comparable to Madara's. The shadows that were usually only used for hand-to-hand combat, at this time, like Dustless's left eye, turned into deep 9-tomo Rinnegan, pulsing with ancient and mysterious brilliance. Especially the 9-tomo hanging, the folds were shining, as gorgeous as gems. Then this group of puppet shadows strangely opened their mouths at the same time, and it was the same word and move. The shadows' left eyes turned sharply, and the substantialized chakra rose more than 200 meters. Kansusanu. The 12 shadows launched Kansusanu at the same time, and the fierce Tengu armor condensed in the void. What was more terrifying was that this majestic and infinite chakra was neither the mature Kansusanu, nor the complete Kansusanu. It was the same Senjutsu Kansusanu as Dustless. The entire sea around Dressrosa, plus Dustless's Kansusanu, gathered a total of 13 Senjutsu Kansusanu. The entire Dressrosa was surrounded, and not even a drop of water could leak out. This group of idiots. Forget it, I'm too lazy to explain. Sometimes ignorance is a kind of precious happiness, and it's not good to let them understand the cruel reality. Really, I must have been a bodhisattva in my previous life. Dustless admired himself, and he was speechless for his kindness and benevolence. Clang, clang, clang. 13 more than 10 meters long luminous tachi appeared in the void, aiming and locking in the direction of Dressrosa. However, the sad pirates and marines were still bombarding Dustless's Kansusanu, and the remaining 12 Kansusanu were not seen. Farewell, everyone. Dustless's face was indifferent, and under the control of his mind, the 13 tachi fell at the same time. Boom boom boom. The Armageddon blade fell, and the 2 halves of Dressrosa were instantly annihilated, turning into particles that sank into the sea. The entire sea was scarlet red, and countless corpses floated on it. At first glance, almost all of them were missing an arm or a leg. Just like Dressrosa, they had been cruelly dismembered. Some devil fruit users who were lucky enough to survive had only death waiting for them. Cough, 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 the figure covered in blood climbed onto a small floating object. His face was as pale as a sheet of paper, and his body was powerless. Looking closely, this person's stomach had been cut open, and there was a frightening wound on his chest. It was as if his entire body had been split apart. Even so, he survived. Marine Headquarters Fleet Admiral Sakazuki, Akainu, he actually survived. Dustless, who was in the sky, removed Kansusanu, stood on the surface of the water, looked at the broken corpses around, smiled slightly, then glanced at Akainu and left. His internal organs had been crushed, and even God couldn't save him. Akagami's body, Dorag's body, Kizara's body, Fujitora's body, Hawkeye's body, Dustless counted the loot and nodded with satisfaction. To some extent, it was a miracle that they could preserve their bodies after being attacked by 13 Senjutsu, Kansusanu perfect body. Live on while at death's door. Glancing at Akainu with pity, Dustless began to look for Hancock and others, as well as the whereabouts of Shirahoshi. Later, he would use infinite Tsukuyami and tree world descent to end this world. This kind of indiscriminate technique, Hancock and Robin will also be affected, and must be stored in the system in advance. Rumble, the den mushi in his arms suddenly rang, Akainu was stunned, and immediately took out the black den mushi with a lonely face. Sakazuki. What's the situation? Has Lewis South been killed? With so many high-end forces, he will die. The Gorosei on the other side of the den mushi laughed. Sorry. The Marine was defeated, all of them were wiped out. Akainu said with guilt, and immediately looked at the bodies floating on the sea. Not only us, but the pirates, the Yonko, 4 emperors, and the high-level revolutionary army were all wiped out by Lewis South. He defeated the whole world alone. So only Lewis South is alive. The Gorosei on the other side of the den mushi said in a low voice. Akainu also heard the subtle change in the Gorosei's voice, and immediately said seriously, yes. Akainu. Your Marine has served the world government for many years, and now the government will help you get revenge on Lewis South. After that, the Gorosei closed the den mushi. Akainu was left with a blank face. Half an hour later, Dustless finally found the traces of the women and Shirahoshi, and put them into the system, and was about to release Infinite Tsukumi. The sea under his feet suddenly trembled. This is. The sky also turned fiery red, Dustless's pupils shrank, and looking as far as he could, the distant sky was burning red, and at the same time, the sea was rolling up monstrous waves. An unprecedented shock spread, not a small town, not an island, but the whole world was rolling like it was about to explode. Chapter 944. Bastard, what's going on? Noticing the abnormality of the whole world, Dustless's face changed rapidly. He clenched his fists and tried to take in the changes of the whole world with his majestic perception. It's not an illusion, nor is it a genjutsu. The whole new world is collapsing. The dormant volcanoes erupted again, the mountains on the seabed began to dislocate, there was a violent vibration, hot magma erupted in the deep sea, and the weather of the new world became lightning and thunder. Islands are constantly sinking and being destroyed, whether it's occupied by pirates or marines, or some unknown deserted islands, they are all sinking rapidly. Disappeared from the map plate. Could it be? His pupils shrank. Dustless suddenly realized that after something big touched the taboo, this kind of shocking scene will happen. His body immediately rushed out like a storm. Staring at the dying figure on the floating object in front of him, he stopped in his tracks. Is this also in your plan? Sakazuki. His feet stopped in the void, looking down at Akainu in front of him. Dustless frowned and asked. This, trying to open his eyes, Akainu said with all his strength, although I am unscrupulous in order to achieve my goals, but not to this extent, this is done by the Gorosei, it has nothing to do with the Marine. After that, Akainu closed his eyes forever, and his breathing and heartbeat stopped forever. This guy. Forget it. Looking at Akainu, who died and still defended the Marine, Dustless had nothing to say. Although Akainu's thoughts are extreme, he can sacrifice anyone for the so-called justice, but it is undeniable that he sincerely protects the Marine, and he has no selfish desires, at least this is the most respectable point. Damn the Gorosei, their ambition is enough to swallow the world, in order to kill me, they are willing to bury the whole world with me. If he didn't guess wrong, the Gorosei did what Z wanted to do, but didn't do it. They used the power rock to detonate 3 places that maintain the balance of the new world, causing the new world to collapse. Well played, not only did you successfully erase all the pirates in the world, even the Marines and I were also erased. The 5 of them will be able to sit back and relax and become the new creators. Most of the world's powerhouses were gathered in the new world. If this group of people was destroyed, the world ruled by the 5 elder stars would fall into an unprecedented peace. They would also be called godlike existences by the world. Boom boom boom. The series of explosions continued, affecting a range of hundreds of kilometers. The entire new world was devastated and involved in this explosive feast. Countless islands disappeared, and the terrified people were brutally wiped out. Even when they died, they didn't know what had happened. Humph. I'll come out and deal with the 5 of you later. Observing the new world that was engulfed by explosions and various geological disasters such as volcanic eruptions, super earthquakes, and great tsunamis, Dustless, who was floating in the void, was swallowed up by the vortex and soon disappeared without a sound. Inside the Shinwei world. Although Wu Chen's divine power originated from Abito, the difference between the divine power and the different space was like heaven and earth. Although it couldn't be said to be a paradise in the mortal world, it was still lofty and comfortable. Plop. The sound of falling into the water attracted Dustless's attention, and he followed the source. After a while, Dustless was embarrassed. In the clear lake, the girl was naked. Her snow-white skin and perfect curves were exposed to Dustless's sight. Her long golden hair was dancing, and she was very happy. Looking up, there were 2 strands of cherry red on her breasts. It was perfect and flawless, and the scenery was beautiful. Dustless suppressed his hoarse breath. For a moment, his mouth was dry, and his tongue was dry. An inexplicable flame burned in his heart, and it quickly squeezed Dustless's reason. Cough cough, remembering that he still had important matters to ask, Dustless had to suppress his evil thoughts. He deliberately raised his voice and coughed twice to attract Clia's attention and make his presence known. Noticing Dustless's appearance, Clia was overjoyed, but she still pretended to be dissatisfied and muttered, "I thought you forgot about me. Stop talking nonsense and put on your clothes." Dustless waved his hand righteously. His modest and gentlemanly appearance made Clia both angry and amused. When he had taken away her most precious thing, he had given her the impression that he was a hungry wolf that had not eaten for many years. He was incomparably ferocious and wanted to completely suck her dry. Clia pursed her lips and smiled. She came ashore in a natural and unrestrained manner and elegantly dressed herself. This girl is indeed different from the other people of Tianlong, peeking at Clia's every move. Dustless was quite surprised. After more than 10 years of meticulous service, Dustless's heart had already decayed. Putting on clothes was something that he was not familiar with. Dustless had to do it herself. This was also the reason why Dustless lost himself in the decadent life of the people of Tianlong. Clia put on her clothes so easily and simply. It indirectly showed that she used to do it herself. Practice makes perfect, and she did not need the help of others. "You should tell me about your origin, right?" Dustless blinked and asked curiously. Clia nodded slightly and immediately sank into her memories. The young girl's tone was full of vicissitudes, giving people the illusion that she was an old monster who had lived for hundreds of years. "To be honest, 800 years ago, I accidentally ate a devil's fruit. Its ability allowed me to evolve all kinds of extreme firearms. Because of its terrifying power, the people gave me a name, Heavenly King," Clia said proudly, with a hint of pride in her tone. "Then what is your relationship with the 20 kings who built the world government?" Dustless was puzzled. Since her ability was so invincible and she was given the title of God by the world, there was no need to cooperate with the ancestors of the people of Tianlong, which was the 20 kings. There is no invincible devil's fruit, there is always a short time. While I gained great power, there was also a fatal loophole. Some extremely powerful weapons had a limit to the number of times they could be used, and excessive use would cause them to fall into a coma. Fortunately, I have the ability to not die, so the long river of life is just a moment for me. Clia smiled bitterly. If she could really exert her full strength, she would not have been driven out of Mariewa by the 5 elder stars, and she even had to submit to Dustless. "That's enough. I'm not interested in knowing about your past." With a wave of his hand, Dustless interrupted directly. He just wanted to know Clia's origin. Nothing else was important. No one wanted to have an unknown person around them. That's it. Clia's face was full of suspicion, and she immediately emphasized, "I'm an old monster who has lived for more than 800 years. So what if it's more than 800 years? Dustless asked in amusement. Kagaya is an old monster who has lived for at least 1,000 years. You can just wait here. His body blurred again, passing through thousands of spacetime and returning to the real world. Everything had changed, and the whole world was bleak, like the hell of the human world. I wanted to let you go to the Genjutsu world to dream of the Creator, but now it seems that I should forget about it. His right eye turned into the Tensigen. Dustless formed a seal with both hands, and without hesitation, he entered the Tensigen chakra mode, and several green spheres floated behind him. Dustless looked at Mariewa countless miles away, and pointed his sword at the 5 elder stars. Chapter 945. No matter when and where, under which starry sky, there is no shortage of existences in this world who like to seek death. The emerald green light lingered around Dustless's body, and his temperament also underwent a shocking change. Under the Tensigen chakra mode, Dustless became more and more indifferent, and the dead still pupils did not have human emotions. Like a machine, standing at an unprecedented height, full of contempt for all living things in the world, looking at the grasses and trees of the world with a condescending gaze. The sky is so small, and all living things are so unbearable that they can only tremble. Carefully experiencing the chakra fluctuations flowing in his body, Dustless has never felt that life is so worthless. The power to destroy the world with a wave of his hand and create the world with a raise of his hand is indeed intoxicating. If you don't seek death, you won't die. Since you seek death, then you will die. Dustless's cold eyes looked into the distance, and his overbearing eyes ignored the distance. Mariewa, who was countless miles away, could be seen at a glance. The 5 elder stars who were celebrating happily could not escape Dustless's eyes. Go to hell. Several green prayer beads floating behind him wandered in front of Dustless, and then quickly liquefied, turning into a faint light that condensed in Dustless's palm. Golden will reincarnation explosion. The negligible light in his hand was instantly magnified 10 times, 100 times, and even 1,000 times longer. Dustless was thousands of kilometers away from Mariewa, but under the unlimited extension of the light sword, it became close and within reach. The light sword of Doomsday could not accurately hit Mariewa, but it covered the entire red line. Boom! The light swept out and passed through the red line with an unstoppable momentum. It cut through the red line effortlessly, and the majestic red line was cut in half. It was trembling and may be destroyed and flattened at any time. This is the final attack. 5 fingers spread out, condensing a dangerous strength, and the edge faintly shattered the world. Dustless did not aim at Mariewa. After all, the position was thousands of miles away, and he could not pinpoint the specific location. Dustless's target of attack and destruction was always the red line. If the red line is completely shattered and turned into ruins, the 5 elder stars will also be doomed. Bang bang bang. The boundless repulsive force that seemed to cover the entire world erupted, and the red line that was hit directly collapsed. Previously, it had been sliced in half by the tyrannical light sword, and now, it was attacked again by this repulsive force, and the red line that could no longer hold on finally collapsed. The entire red line was in a state of chain reaction, sinking into the bottom of the sea, and Mariewa, who had stood at the top for more than 800 years, also disappeared into the sea. With the support of the moon's repulsive force, the sea also set off a super tsunami that was hundreds of feet high, and it mightily attacked the red line that had already vanished. In the face of this huge disaster that was enough to change the entire world's landscape, the 5 elder stars' methods were exceedingly powerful. Moreover, according to Dustless's point of view, the 5 of them were all ability users. If they fell into the sea, it would be difficult for them to escape even if they grew wings. The next step is the final step. Dustless tapped the surface of the sea with the tip of his foot and immediately floated towards the moon. The emerald radiance on his body quickly retracted and he returned to his normal human appearance. The Rinnegan Sharingan gently rippled, and its eye power crossed thousands of miles and was reflected on the surface of the moon. Dustless whispered softly in the corner of his mouth, and the obscure language was difficult for ordinary people to understand. At this moment, he made a seal with one hand, and his slightly gloomy face outlined a touch of eagerness. He immediately looked directly at the red moon that had turned into the Rinnegan Sharingan and did not hesitate to pull the prelude to the destruction of the world. Infinite Tsukumi. Illuminate the world. As Wu Chen's voice fell, an incomparably dazzling light poured down in torrents, covering the entire planet. Even the animals that were active in the depths of the sea and in the depths of the earth were unable to escape the capture of the flash. After a pause for a few seconds, the pupils of the creatures affected by the infinite Tsukumi turned into the Rinnegan state. Any life in the sea, land, and air is the same. No one can escape the shackles of the light. This white light, which is far more dazzling than the sun, can penetrate the shadow of people. There is one more process left. Dustless in midair swept his eyes as if he could see through the whole world. Finally, his eyes fell on some islands that had not been destroyed, and then he made a seal with both hands. God's tree world descends. The emerald towering tree stretched at the speed of light, and the speed of growth was immeasurable. Just the moment it landed and took root, the tree with strong vitality occupied the entire island. The dense roots grew vigorously, and they were endless with infinite vitality. Finally, they marched to the depths of the sea and continued to grow until they covered the whole planet. Dense small roots grew out of the large torso, wrapping the humans or animals who had been hit by the infinite Tsukumi like mummies. It slowly sucked the vitality in their bodies until the towering ancient tree bears new fruits. Then everything will stop. It seems that it will take a while. Dustless said helplessly with a frown. At the top of the giant tree, red fruits have been born, but they are only the size of a thumb. Sure enough, it's a ruthless technique, completely using the vitality of all creatures as nourishment. Wu Chen secretly clicked his tongue. Although his mouth was like this, his heart was calm and magnanimous. Although the method was extremely cruel and bloody, he saw through it. People are selfish, and Dustless will not be kind to the world. In the end, he only has one identity from the beginning to the end. He is a predator from other dimensions. Chapter 946. In the Systems World. Time flew by, and in the blink of an eye, 7 days had passed. During this period, the tree of God had once again borne fruit. Dustless distributed it to the girls in the system. Although he did not know if they could live forever, at least their appearance could be restored to their youth. This world is changing so fast. Under the cool shade of the tree, Wu Chen looked down at the girls who were laughing and chatting with each other with a gentle gaze. For a moment, he was filled with emotions and murmured to himself. In the past, he was alone, but now he had countless beauties to accompany him. At this point in his life, Dustless had no desires. You need to be whipped. A melodious sound of nature resounded in the ears. The void beside Wu Chen splashed with ripples, and then a beautiful figure stood out. Her hair was blown by the wind, and her shining eyes were extremely wise. She saw through Dustless's thoughts. The shackles that have been troubling you have disappeared. You feel much more relaxed now, right? Hearing this, Dustless pursed his lips and smiled, nodding in agreement. All along, their lifespan has been my worry. Now that it's finally solved, it's natural for me to feel relaxed. Dustless stretched, and coincidentally met the system Ling-er's unkind eyes. He was speechless. You're a system, yet you have such groundless fears. Forget it, tell me the location of my next world. The system Ling nodded, and then her face froze. She said seriously, that world is a little special. You can only enter as a soul. Soul. Dustless's calm eyes rippled, and he said nervously, "Soul. Don't tell me you want to seal my strength." Seal his strength? What a joke. He spent half a century to gain his strength, and it was sealed just like that. Dustless was naturally unhappy. "I'm not sealing your strength, nor am I suppressing your strength. No one can do that, not even me." The System Ling shook her head, and then said bluntly, "Your strength is still at its peak, but you'll be entering that world as a soul. I'm not sure what will happen. There's no need to worry about such a small matter. In short, it's fine as long as it doesn't seal my strength. You have to give up something to gain something. Even if there are accidents, it's inevitable." Dustless waved his hand. With his current strength, there was no need for him to be afraid of anyone. As the entire body of the Ten Tails, he was an absolute existence that could not be killed. Not only his physical body, but also his soul. "It's good that you have such awareness." System Ling slowly nodded, then asked in a light voice, "Do you have anything else to tell me?" "Explain." Hearing this, the corner of Dustless's mouth twitched. His eyes were full of suspicion and resentment. He looked at System Ling, feeling like it wanted him to leave a will or something. "Do it." Recalling his heaven-defying abilities, Dustless felt relieved. Boom, boom, boom. In the cloudless sky above Soul Society, a huge hole appeared in the void after a loud explosion, which woke up the entire Soul Society. The captains of the Guiding 13 quickly rushed over. This situation was usually the rhythm of the Great Void invading Soul Society. The huge hole in the sky was getting bigger and bigger, as if it was going to swallow the entire Soul Society. In the depths of the black hole, there was a frightening energy fluctuation. Bang! A black shadow fell out from within and smashed onto the ground, losing consciousness. "Who is he?" The captains of the Guiding 13 frowned and looked at the young man on the ground in confusion. They had no impression of this young man. "Is this a disaster? Lock him up for now," the old man with the crutch ordered. He would not allow anything that could threaten Soul Society to happen. "Understood, head captain." "My head hurts." The drowsy Dustless gradually opened his eyes. Instinctively, he wanted to rub his eyes, but he could not do it. His limbs were bound, and it was difficult to move his body. Suddenly, he realized that something was wrong, and his pupils dilated several times. What's going on?" With a dull look, Dustless was shocked to find that he was tied up by thick iron chains, and there was an executioner with a knife staring at him fiercely. Moving his line of sight forward, there were a few captains in white feather clothing who were curiously sizing up Wu Qin, who was in a daze. "You! What do you want?" A bad feeling arose in his heart. Dustless looked at the executioner with a gloomy face. He was also wearing a captain's feather, and his expression was extremely ferocious. However, Dustless was tied up with iron chains. This scene. It seemed like they were going to execute him. "Disaster, you have hindered the safety of Soul Society. You must be punished." A man with brown skin, purple hair, and goggles said coldly. He was also a captain. "What the F***ck?" Dustless vomited blood and cursed in his heart. At the same time, his eyes were extremely terrifying, and cold light gathered. It was impossible for him to just wait for death. At the same time, Dustless was very confused. In the past, his transmigration was very stable, but this time, there was a problem. Although the System Ling was usually a little weird, it would never trick him. Since it was not the system, it was obvious that the problem was with Soul Society. Chapter 947. Dustless lowered his head and pondered, trying to figure out this unexpected change. From a transmigrator to a prisoner, even with his vast knowledge, his mind was still in a mess. Boy, do you have any last words? The ferocious voice was filled with sympathy and pity, sizing up Wu Qin with a condescending gaze. A breeze blew over, and the captain's haori fluttered. The black 11 on his back was very conspicuous. Dustless glanced at him and looked away. This guy should be the 10th Kanpachi, Onigami Ieyasu. Dustless's eyes changed rapidly. He thought to himself, ignore him directly. This unlucky guy will be killed by Gingmu Jinba in the future. I'm not a traveler. I used to live in the 65th street of Rukuin Street. I just accidentally awakened Zanpakuto. His clear eyes fell on Shunsui Kaikura, Jushiro Yukitake, and the others, and finally fell on the gentle face of the 4th Division Captain, Unohana Retsu. In Dustless's impression, these people were the only ones with a conscience. However, as the saying goes, plans can't keep up with changes. Soon, someone came to expose him, and it was Unohana Retsu, who Dustless had a good impression of. She smiled and said, "It's not good to lie. There's no fluctuation of spiritual pressure in your body, and you don't seem to be dead. Your Zanpakuto is also missing, boy." Dustless's face was full of shock. He didn't expect Unohana Retsu to be so smart. He glared at her and quickly thought of a solution. Suddenly, an idea flashed in his mind. This is my Zanpakuto. Ripples splashed in the void, and an ancient Zanpakuto that was much longer than a normal Zanpakuto appeared out of thin air. What a strange Zanpakuto. The captains looked at each other and curiously stared at the Zanpakuto floating in the void. It was the first time they saw such a long Zanpakuto. A bunch of idiots, this is the first generation Onigami. Dustless's face was calm, but he was laughing in his heart. He immediately said, "As for why there's no spiritual pressure in my body, the reason is very simple. I was unfortunate to encounter a grand void, and when I fought with them, I exhausted all my spiritual pressure and fainted." Since no one saw it, Dustless could make up whatever he wanted. However, not only did his words not dispel the doubts of the captains, but they also furrowed their brows and looked at Dustless in unison. Seeing his calm and clear eyes without fear, they all looked suspiciously at Ghost Yen Cheng and Sword 8. The 11th Division was responsible for the safety of the Street of Drifting Souls. It was a serious crime for the Great Void to sneak in. "Bastard, don't talk nonsense." Ghost Yen Cheng's face turned green, and his eyes were burning. The Zanpakuto was out of its scabbard, revealing a sharp cold light under the refraction of the sun. The tip of the blade swept towards Dustless's throat. Shio! A beautiful figure rushed over and blocked in front of Wu Qin, blocking the saber light that was attacking Wu Qin. "Captain Gue Yen Qing, the head captain will make a decision on this matter." "That's right." Hearing this, Wu Qin nodded like a chick pecking rice. He immediately said in a strange tone, "He wants to silence me. After I die, there will be no evidence. He can also push all the blame to me." Looking closely, this person was Aizen. At this moment, Aizen was very open. He opened his hands to block the Zanpakuto katana. "Captain Katana, don't be impatient. What Zanpakuto said makes sense. The captain will decide." Yukitake Jushiro stood up for Aizen. His words resonated with all the captains, and they all agreed with Aizen's suggestion. This kid deserves to be called the movie king. What a beautiful move. No matter what happens in the end, he'll have a good reputation. Dustless was quite unhappy. He looked at the righteous Aizen with disdain. Aizen used Dustless to gain a good reputation. If he didn't know who Aizen was, Dustless would have been fooled by his gentle appearance. In fact, he was a vicious snake. Katana's face was gloomy, and he stared at Dustless with murderous intent. In the end, he chose to take back his Zanpakuto and asked, "Kid, what is your name?" "My name is Dustless." Dustless chose to forget the surname Uchiha. You said you defeated a Minos Grande. Ghost Yen Chang's eyes were filled with cunning. He sneered, if you want to prove your innocence, it's easy. The weakest in the Great Void is Jillian. Only the vice-captain can deal with him. If you can kill them, it means that your strength is at least at the vice-captain level. At this point, Ghost Yen Chang's 8th swordsman released a spiritual pressure that soared into the sky and pounced on Dustless. I will suppress my power to the vice-captain level. If you can defeat me, then what you said is true. Otherwise, everything you said before is bullshit, and I will kill you with my own hands. A sinister laugh filled with killing intent spat out from Ghost Yen Chang's throat. The meaning was self-evident. This guy, all the captains were unhappy when they heard this, and they were cursing him for being shameless. A captain was a captain, even if he suppressed his power to the vice-captain level, he could still defeat the vice-captain easily. Captain Katana, you are going too far. Uno Hualai frowned. Her calm tone was filled with anger. Bullying the weak was a disgrace to the Godding 13 and insulting the title of 8th Blade. 8th Blade meant the strongest swordsman in Soul Society. Yen Cheng's actions were the complete opposite. No problem. Staring at the man-eating ghost Yen Cheng and Saber 8, Dustless's indifferent reply made all the captains look at each other. Chapter 948. The Godii 13 squadrons had a total of 13 squadrons, and the one with the strongest combat power was the 11th Division, and the captain of the 11th Division was an outstanding existence among the captains. This little guy, Uno Hanaretsu's eyes were filled with light as she looked at Dustless with interest. After a while, her eyes dimmed as she did not notice anything different about Dustless. He did not have any Ryatsu and looked very ordinary. The only thing that Uno Hanaretsu appreciated was that he was able to remain calm even when facing a ferocious captain like Ghost Yen Cheng. This made Uno Hanaretsu look at him in a new light. The fact that he can become a captain means that his strength has been recognized by the head captain, and the previous captains of the 11th Division are all extremely strong, and they are also the best among the captains. Uno Hanaretsu quietly explained as she looked at first-generation Ghost Che's elegant scabbard, you have awakened Zanpakuto, and you still have a long way to go. There is no need for you to throw your life away. Anyone who offends this man's enemy will die in the end. Dustless looked at Uno Hanaretsu suspiciously and asked curiously, this is our first meeting, why are you telling me this? Being asked by Dustless, Uno Hanaretsu remained calm and said seriously, your body does not have Ryatsu, and you are still so calm when facing a captain. If you can survive, I believe that your future will be bright. This way, Soul Society might even have a genius who can stand on the same level as Captain Ikamaru Jin in the future. Thank you for thinking so highly of me, Captain Uno Hua. However, I still want to give it a try. Tactfully rejecting Unohua's good intentions, Dustless said resolutely. A faint light flashed in the corner of his eyes. Dustless wanted to provoke this rash green blade 8. Other than purposely splashing dirty water on him, he also wanted to test the captain's strength. Since he was not familiar with this place, he needed to at least find a suitable candidate to understand this world. Where does this brat get his confidence from? Uno Hua said in surprise. Cherry's small mouth opened wide, and she was about to try and persuade Cherry when a vigorous voice that was filled with confidence attracted everyone's attention. Humph. A muffled groan sounded, and the originally warm and cool air became incomparably hot. Gue Yenqing, remember this clearly. You are the captain of Soul Society. Every move you make represents quiet Soul Society. You are not a hooligan who bullies the weak and fears the strong. The head captain reprimanded coldly. His words were merciless. However, since both sides are willing, let's go with Captain Ghost Yen Chang's suggestion. Remember, don't go too far. The head captain's sunken eyes suddenly widened several times as he spoke in an extremely cold tone. Hee hee. I couldn't ask for more. The ferocious-looking ghost Yanqing laughed loudly. No problem, Dustless said indifferently as he met the head captain's gaze. In an extremely spacious area, there were dozens of people around. This place was surrounded by mountains on all sides. It was a sealed valley. Other than a few captains, there was no one else. How strange. Why is that old man Yamamoto purposely biased towards me? Staring at Kenpachi Gue Yanqing, who was 10 meters in front of him, Dustless's peripheral vision was revolving around old man Yamamoto, who was holding a walking stick and watching from afar. Kenpachi Gue Yanqing was a noble Kenpachi, and Dustless was just an ordinary person. The direction of the heavens should be one-sided. However, the head captain was insinuating that he was suppressing Kenpachi Gue Yanqing. This in itself did not make sense. This old man. I think he is looking for an opportunity to eliminate Kenpachi Gue Yanqing. The confusion in Dustless's heart disappeared, and he vaguely understood the head captain's intention. Later on, Zaraki Kenpachi single-handedly eliminated Kenpachi Gue Yanqing, and he naturally became the captain. Zaraki Kenpachi could be said to be old man Yamamoto's disciple who taught him the way of the sword. Boom boom boom. A purple light burst out from the sky. Under the boundless spiritual pressure, the mountains that bordered the area trembled and the particles on the ground trembled slightly. Is this spiritual pressure? Smacking his lips, Dustless's eyes flashed with fascination. The stronger a person's soul was, the stronger their spiritual pressure would be. As the 10 tails, Dustless did not know how strong his soul was. However, one thing was for sure, it was definitely not weak. Roar roar roar, in the sky, the spiritual pressure condensed into a ferocious beast with a mouth full of fangs. Scorching saliva dripped out of its mouth, and it would burn the ground when it touched it. Is this all you've got? Captain Kenpachi Gue Yanqing. Staring curiously at the ferocious beast that was condensing spiritual pressure, Dustless asked curiously, I heard that every Kenpachi Gue Yanqing's spiritual pressure is one of the best among the captains. Humph, at least you are knowledgeable. This is my strength when I'm at my peak. Just based on the amount of spiritual pressure, I am indeed one of the best in soul society. Kenpachi Gue Yanqing was extremely pleased with Dustless's flattery. He laughed complacently, and did not care about the disgusted looks from the captains around him. Then, he remembered how Dustless exposed him, and sneered, Don't think that I will forgive you just because you said something nice. No, no. You misunderstood me. Dustless shook his head like a rattle drum, and then said bluntly, The spiritual pressure just now, I thought you were suppressing your strength to the level of a vice captain. I didn't expect it to be your full strength. Chapter 949. These words instantly ignited the powder keg that was Ghost Yanqing. Whoosh! An afterimage flashed out, and then Ghost Yanqing disappeared like a ghost. Boom boom boom. There was a fierce wave of power behind him, and a fist with the weight of Mount Tai came crashing down. Ghost Yanqing's face was full of contempt. Dustless was like a statue, standing motionless in the same place, unaware of his existence. He immediately remembered the head captain's warning, and he could not help but lower his strength. If you ignore the head captain's order, you will not be able to bear the consequences. Boom! The air trembled violently, and a visible ripple appeared in the void. Bastard, it hurts! A painful scream came into everyone's ears, and when they looked closely, they saw that Ghost Yanqing's huge fist was red and swollen, as if he had hit a meteorite. Not only did he not hurt Dustless, but he himself was in a mess. Even the bones that formed the pinky finger were shattered and annihilated. What's going on? All the captains were shocked. Ghost Yanqing's red and swollen fist was obviously not fake, and the problem naturally came from Dustless's body. It seems like he used the hardness of his body to defend, but how can his body be so hard? Her eyes were filled with shock. Uno Hanaretsu's chest heaved up and down, and her tone was raised a lot. How hard does his body have to be to defend against the head captain's fist with just his body, and even injure the opponent? Uno Hanaretsu felt that it was unbelievable. This is Ghost Yenching's carelessness, he is always so childish and useless. The head captain looked at Dustless, and then said calmly, "It's impossible for a fist as weak as yours to hurt me." Turning around, Dustless said expressionlessly, "Even if he was now in a soul state, everything in the past, including armament hockey, observation hockey, devil fruit, and many ninjutsu, he could use them all. Brat, even if you're getting carried away, you should know when to stop." Ghost Yenching's eyes were bloodshot, and then his body's spiritual pressure surged, and the spiritual pressure soared into the sky, and a fatal deterrence followed. His body felt as if it was carrying a mountain that weighed over 1,000 jin. It was difficult for him to even breathe or move an inch. The coarse hand condensed a blazing flame, and the temperature instantly increased by dozens of times. The small fireball in Ghost Yen Chang's hand also turned into a huge fireball. Tao Breaker 31, Red Cannon. The fireball that Yen Ching condensed in Saber 8's hand stood out, leaving a crimson afterimage in its wake. The fire was even bigger than Dustless himself. This kind of flame used for illumination, do you think it's really suitable for battle? Helplessly shaking his head, Dustless sighed. He completely ignored the deterrence of the spiritual pressure and unsheathed the first-generation ghost blade. A cold light pierced through the incoming fireball. Puchi! The powerful fireball instantly split into two, passing by Dustless on both sides. "This kid is weird," the captain of the 5th Division, Sosuke Aizen, was puzzled. Of course, it was not in terms of strength. Dustless's weak strength was not worth mentioning in his eyes. To Aizen's surprise, Dustless was calm and composed. He was like a veteran who'd been through hundreds of battles and wasn't afraid at all. Bastard! Ghost Yen Chang's eyes emitted a sinister red light. After exchanging 2 blows, Dustless came out unscathed, but his hand was broken. Just the thought of it made him angry and resentful. Even the captains around him were looking at him differently. Contempt and disdain were clearly visible. He was embarrassed by a nobody. Even if his face was as thick as a city wall, he couldn't stand it. Hum hum hum. A sharp, ear-piercing sound of thunder suddenly rang out. They could feel a faint burning pain on their skin. Ghost Yen Chang's Sword 8 had actually condensed a huge lightning bolt in his palm. This blockhead seems to be very familiar with Kido. Dustless was quite surprised. Compared to his successor, Zaraki Kenpachi, this guy was a genius. Zaraki Kenpachi doesn't know Kido. Heido's 63 Thunder Roar Cannon. A straight beam of light whistled, and the deafening roar made people's ears feel stuffy. It left an afterimage in the sky, like a golden spear piercing through the air. "This is against the rules, head captain." The captains looked at the head captain in unison. The previous agreement was to maintain the strength of the vice captain. Although the Heido 63 Thunder could be used by the vice captain, Ghost Yen Chang's current strength was far beyond the vice captain's. Rules are dead, people are alive. The rules we set are effective. Hueco Mundo has been peaceful for a long time. Yamamoto's old voice was filled with endless vicissitudes of life. Moreover, judging from Wu Chen's calm and composed performance, their anxiousness was completely superfluous. Strange, what did that kid called Dustless do? A surprised exclamation pulled everyone's thoughts back. Looking up, the golden lightning was burning with dark flames, corroding Ghost Yen Chang's Heido at a speed visible to the naked eye. When it came into contact with Dustless, the power contained in the flash was almost negligible. Not to mention Dustless, even a normal human couldn't hurt it. Huff! A hot breath came out of Dustless's mouth, and the roaring flash disappeared with the wind. Chapter 950. Dustless was hoping that Kenpachi Ghost Yenching would give up, but he did not expect that it would ignite his anger instead. Ah! What an untactful person. Under the unprecedented anger, Ghost Yenching's spiritual pressure, which could be said to be limitless, finally stopped holding back. His whole body was like a blazing furnace, trembling with anger. The scorching temperature even wanted to vaporize Dustless's arm. Not only that, even the Lingzi floating in the air started to burn, igniting the surrounding sky in an instant. An angry beast is indeed dangerous, but, speaking of which, is he going to use Bankai? Dustless looked expectantly at Kenpachi Ghost Yenching, who was emitting danger signals all over his body. Instead of being afraid, he was happy. He was very interested in the Shirkai and Bankai of the Shinigami. However, Dustless's hope was destined to fail this time. In some aspects, Kenpachi Ghost Yenching was very similar to his successor, Zaraki Kenpachi. He did not seem to know Shirkai and Bankai. Suddenly, he realized that a cold light was falling from the sky. Dustless subconsciously raised his head, and his pupils suddenly shrank. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. Intersecting black lights of unknown origin fell from the sky. There were only a few of them, but no one dared to underestimate them. Some of the captains even felt that they were too close, and they all distanced themselves from the center of the area. Ignoring Dustless, who was a little stunned, Kenpachi Ghost Yenching bit his lips and said a few forbidden words. 90 of Breaking Tao. Black Coffin. A few simple words came out from his throat, as if it was filled with endless magic. It supported the power of the black lights, and a dark and horrifying purple light pulsated. Under everyone's observation, the purple light became real. The moment it landed, it turned into a huge black coffin. The attack range was huge, and Dustless was also affected. Puchi. Puchi. In the dark environment, thousands of invisible blades attacked. In just a few seconds, Dustless's body was shredded thousands of times. This kind of boring, useless attack, how long are you going to use it for? A long sigh echoed through the dark space. It was hard to imagine that there were creatures that could survive in such a dense environment. Dustless's body was emitting light, completely ignoring the shadow blades attacking him. Every time his body was damaged, it would be repaired by the glint fruit. This cycle continued endlessly. About a few minutes later, Dustless finally lost his patience as he felt the endless shadowless blades attacking him from all directions. He lifted his right foot off the ground and the whole calf was covered by the golden liquid. Then, he mercilessly kicked the dark coffin wall. Lightspeed kick. The black coffin shook fiercely under the impact, and then there was a vibration of caw caw caw. Irregular cracks spread out. Chapter 951. Yamamoto was an old monster who had lived for over 1,000 years. Not only was his strength extraordinary, he was also quite intelligent. He stared at Dustless's skinny body with a sharp glint in his eyes. "Young man, are you interested in joining the Godai 13? All the captains looked at Dustless. Soul Society could not turn a blind eye to such a person. Joining the Godai 13 was a must. If he refused, he would probably be punished by the head captain. Of course. A smile appeared on Dustless's face as he accepted. He indeed needed a suitable identity to end the awkwardness of being a vagabond. That would be for the best. The head captain nodded his head in satisfaction. Soon after, he calmly said, "Which division do you intend to join? Based on your strength, any division is extremely suitable." The old man is really biased. Shunsui stood out and complained, but the head captain glared at him and said, "Based on your strength, this old man suggests you join the 11th division." Hearing this, Dustless rejected old man Yamamoto's suggestion without even thinking. A cunning thought appeared in his mind: I choose to join the head captain's 1st division. These words caused all the captains to be shocked. This was obviously walking right into the trap. This kid, is this an accident? It doesn't seem like it. Uno Hanaretsu frowned as she looked at Dustless. Her heart was filled with suspicion. She had a feeling that Dustless was taking a step back in order to advance. After working together for over 1,000 years, Uno Hanaretsu understood the head captain's personality. He would not tolerate even the slightest mistake. If Dustless chose to join another division, Old Man Yamamoto would definitely force Dustless to join the first division. Now that Dustless took the initiative to join the first division, Old Man Yamamoto's heart was moved. This old man appreciates your kindness, but the first division is not suitable for you. As expected, just as Uno Hanaretsu thought, Old Man Yamamoto directly rejected Dustless. He looked deeply at Dustless before finally looking at Shunsui Okatake, and the others. In the end, his gaze landed on Uno Huaretsu. Captain Uno Flower. Your fourth division doesn't have a suitable vice-captain. Let him be the captain. Although the fourth division is a medical team, it's inevitable that there will be accidents. A strong vice-captain is also needed. This is the most suitable combination. Old Man Yamamoto made the final decision, leaving no room for anyone to refute. Yuan Lu Zhai, that fellow, forget it. Uno Hualai shook her head and smiled bitterly. Then, she walked towards Dustless with graceful steps. She politely extended her arms and revealed her snow-white wrists. Please take care of me in the future, Lord Chin. Uno Hualai revealed a gentle smile. It was very charming and made people feel relaxed like they were bathing in the spring breeze. Plans can't keep up with changes. Dustless felt a strange feeling in his heart. He naturally knew what the head captain meant. Rather than saying that he was the vice captain, it was more like having Uno Hua monitor him. After all, Uno Hua was absolutely loyal to the world, and her strength was unquestionable. As the first Sword 8, she could be considered an invincible existence. Please take care of me, Captain Uno Hua. Dustless politely extended his arm and smiled. The two of them shook hands in a friendly manner under the gaze of all the captains. The soft touch between the 5 fingers made Wuchen's heart flutter and his mind agitated. Lord Chin. Uno Hualai reminded Dustless when she saw that he was distracted. Hearing this, Dustless felt awkward. He instinctively let go of Uno Hualai's hand and smiled embarrassedly. He quickly changed the topic and asked in confusion, shouldn't the captain of the 4th division be Yuin Toru? Uno Hualai looked at Dustless in confusion and explained, Yuin is currently only a 3rd seat. With her strength, she's not qualified for the vice-captain position. Dustless's eyes flashed with understanding. He could not help but sigh in his heart. I thought that by showing off a little bit of my strength, I could get a captain to play with. Thinking about the cunning Yamamoto Ryuichigoku, Dustless knew that his plan had failed. Soul Society would not find someone of unknown origin to be a captain. Congratulations, Shunsui and the other captains came to express their gratitude. Dustless also forced a smile and greeted them one by one. He only returned to the 4th division with Uno Hualai in the evening. Soul Society was very efficient. At the very least, the 4th division was so. After hearing that there was a new vice-captain, they quickly tidied up a clean courtyard. Although it was not luxurious, it was clean and simple. It was suitable for self-cultivation. Dustless also felt very tired after the fight with Yen Cheng and Saber 8 during the day. After taking a casual shower, he was about to go to sleep when the unexpected sound of footsteps chased away his sleepiness and made him full of energy. Something big must have happened for a late-night visit. In the reception hall, Uno Hualai and a graceful woman could be clearly seen. This elegant and mysterious woman was extremely beautiful. She exuded a seductive aura. She had long black hair that was parted to the side. She wore a complicated golden hair ornament and a white cloak with a buckle. Her appearance was beautiful. It's her. After looking at the symbol of the fourth division behind the mysterious woman and confirming that he did not see wrongly, Dustless's calm eyes rippled. He activated high-density chakra all over his body in case of any accidents. The Zero Division's codename Oishi Mamoru, Shudora Thousand Hands Maru, was definitely not looking for Dustless with good intentions. Chapter 952. This. Which captain is this? She looks unfamiliar. Dustless walked up with a smile on his face as if he had never met her before. She, thinking about Shidoro-sensei identity, Unohana Retsu hesitated for a few seconds before smiling. She's a close friend of mine, Shidoro-sensei. She only gave a simple introduction of her name and did not mention anything else. Dustless's eyes widened as he pretended to be surprised. I didn't expect Soul Society to have other captains other than the Godei 13. His sparkling eyes fell on the graceful Shidoro Thousand Hands Maru. Dustless said meaningfully, the Soul Society is really a. Why do you have so much to say? Take off your clothes and stop wasting my time. Shoutoro Senju interrupted Dustless as he shouted impatiently. At the same time, the skeletal arm behind him reached out to grab Dustless. He thought he could easily grab Dustless since he was just a rookie vice captain. However, the reality was the complete opposite. What kind of technique is this? Is it the path of ghosts? It doesn't seem like it. It's more like some unknown mysterious ability. Shoutoro Senju analyzed in surprise. His cold face relaxed as he showed a hint of interest. He thought Dustless was just an ordinary vice captain, but it seemed like he had some skills. Dustless's body glowed with a warm light as he used elementization to ignore the skeletal arm. You're quite strong to be able to defeat Ghost Yenqing. Shoutoro Senju's tone was no longer as cold as before. At least, Dustless felt like he was talking to someone. As a death god, you must have the Death Tyrant outfit. When an ordinary person becomes a death god, they will be born with it. However, you are an exception. Take off all of your clothes and let me make it for you. The size must be reasonable and there must not be any mistakes. Shidoro Thousand Hand Maru said seriously. His words revealed a meticulous attitude. You're saying I have to take off all my clothes? Dustless asked suspiciously. Hearing that Shoutoro Senju's tone was not hostile, Dustless relaxed. He looked at Unohana Retsu, and she nodded her head in agreement. When helping others to sew up the Death Tyrant's armor, one needed to be of the right size. Ahem. I'm not ready yet. Do you want to come back tomorrow? Looking at the bony arm behind Shidoro Thousand Hands Maru and her fervent gaze, Wu-chan always had a feeling of being treated as a lab rat. She was also a mad scientist, and her level was even higher than that perverted Cocoon Ray. You're a man, why are you being more shy than a woman? Wrinkling her eyebrows, Shidoro Thousand Hands Maru unhappily scolded, I don't even care, what do you have to say? Could it be that you are afraid that I will eat you? Hearing Shoutoro Senju's words, Dustless's face turned red. He had just taken a shower and was only wearing his pajamas. After being provoked by Shoutoro Senju, Dustless directly undid his belt. Ahem ahem ahem, Unohana Retsu's expression changed when she saw this. Looking at the blushing Dustless, she did not know whether to laugh or cry. She never thought that the vice captain she trusted so much would have such a childish side. There are still some things I need to take care of in the 4th division. Goodbye. Bowing slightly, Unohana Retsu left with an awkward expression. Really, someone who has lived for thousands of years is still so shy. The future of Soul Society is worrying. Seeing Unohana Retsu running away, Shoutoro Senju's body floated up and landed beside Dustless, circling around him. You're Dustless, right? Measuring the length of Dustless's arm, Shoutoro Senju's uninterested asked casually. Yes. Dustless answered honestly. At the same time, Shoutoro Senju's hands were not idle. His skeletal hands were extremely nimble, sticking close to Dustless's body and carefully measuring his waist, height, and so on. Because he was so close, Dustless could even feel Shoutoro Senju's breathing. How torturous! Dustless bitterly smiled. His voice was as soft as a mosquito's, but it still fell into Shoutoro Senju's ears. You don't know what's good for you. There are so many people who want me to die, but they don't have the fortune. You don't know how lucky you are. At this moment, two tender white arms unexpectedly came out of his sleeves and took off Dustless's pajamas, exposing him completely naked in front of Shoutoro Senju's eyes. Seeing this, Dustless's mouth fiercely twitched. He was speechless. Looking up at Shoutoro Senju's eyes, he felt relieved. So she has hands too. His line of sight swept past the delicate white wrist of Shuro Senjumaru. Wu Chen was too lazy to think more. Such a person who loved to dress up and loved beauty, she couldn't be so crazy as to cut off her own arm. If it wasn't for this thing down there, people might have thought that you were a woman. Shoutoro Senju's perfect and charming face was moved. Dustless's skin was white and tender, as bright as a gem. It was very smooth, even purer than the skin of an ordinary girl. This woman, Dustless directly closed his eyes, suddenly feeling like he was a human specimen. However, the moment he closed his eyes, something unexpected happened. Chapter 954. So far, the only person who wanted to harm Soul Society was Sosuke Aizen. Although this was just Dustless's baseless conjecture, only Sosuke Aizen and his two lackeys, Yeast Sensei and Jin Ikimara, were capable of mobilizing thousands of Killian and invading Soul Society without anyone noticing. It wasn't difficult for the three captains to mobilize thousands of Minos to invade Soul Society. If Jin and Yeast Sensei were Sosuke Aizen's lackeys, their cooperation would have been flawless. However, even Aizen didn't expect Dustless Sky to suddenly cross over. His precise plan wasn't messed up. Thousands of grand voids were enough to destroy the world, but compared to the system, it was just a drop in the ocean. So the Minos didn't come out alive, and Dustless fell instead. Do you know what you mean by that? Shuro asked with a pale face. A layer of ice covered her face. Sigh. Looking at the murderous Shoutoro thousand-handed Maru, Wu Chen sighed and looked up at the wooden ceiling. I'm just too kind. I obviously know that I'm going to die, but I still chose to tell the truth. Hey! Hearing this, Shidoro Thousand Hands Maru's pretty face was filled with astonishment. For thousands of years, this was the first time she met someone who was so shameless. He slandered Yanqing Kenpachi for no reason and even beat him up violently to establish his prestige. Now, he actually shamelessly said that he was kind. This was the first time Shidoro Thousand Hands Maru had met such a person. Are you sure? Remembering Dustless's strength when he defeated Kenpachi Ghost Yanqing, Shidoro Thousand Hands Maru could not help but hesitate. He lowered his voice and asked with slight anticipation. What's the benefit of me tricking you? Taking a deep look at Shidoro Thousand Hand Maru, Wu Chen didn't answer but asked instead. Shidoro Thousand-Handed Maru nodded thoughtfully. He reluctantly agreed with Wu Chen's words. Everything was about motive. As far as the current situation was concerned, Wu Chen indeed had no benefit in deceiving her. That's all for today. I'll come back for you in the future. After taking a deep look at Wu Chen, Shidoro Thousand-Hand Maru floated away, leaving Wu Chen with a view of his back. In the end, he gradually turned into an ink dot and disappeared. I finally got rid of this jinx. Dustless was sleepy, but because of Unohana Retsu and Shuro's invasion, he didn't feel sleepy at all. He strolled around the courtyard in boredom. Looking at the stars in the sky, his mind wandered, thinking about the current situation. I can only wait a while. Even if I kill Kenpachi Ghost now, Yamamoto won't let me take the captain's position. Dustless thought to himself. He had only been in Soul Society for a day, or even less than a day. Yamamoto would never be so absurd as to hand over the 11th division to him. Sosuke Aizen, staring at the bright moon in the sky, Dustless was speechless. Even if he told them the truth, Soul Society would think he was making it up. They might even arrest Dustless as a suspect. Accusing the captain without evidence was not a small crime. Aizen also had 2 loyal lackeys, Ikemura Jin and Higashi-sensei. They worked together perfectly, and no one could take down Aizen and the others. In the gloomy underground world, there were all kinds of sophisticated instruments monitoring every corner of Soul Society. Even the captain's first division was under the observation of these instruments. Captain Aizen. Should we continue with our plan? In the dark space, a malicious voice sounded, with a hint of schadenfreude. With the help of the fluorescent light on the screen, 3 figures could be clearly seen walking out of the dark space. Looking closely, it was Sosuke Aizen, his lackeys Tei-sensei and Jin. Of course, how can we stop our plan because of a nobody? That young man called Dustless is far from enough to influence us to give up our plan. Sosuke Aizen's voice was very soft, his expression was gentle, but there was a coldness that penetrated deep into the soul. Just like Dustless said, this man was a poisonous snake hiding in the dark. Aizen-sama. The creation of the Great Void inside Shinozaki Ichigo was about to be completed, but it was destroyed by that kid. Should we? Tei-sensei made a throat-slitting gesture at Sosuke Aizen. Hearing this, Aizen stopped. For the first time in his life, he showed a rare look of confusion. At that time, he was secretly manipulating the Great Void to sneak into Soul Society from the Black Cavity. Who would have thought that the plan would not be able to keep up with the changes? A space-time storm suddenly appeared in the Black Cavity, destroying thousands of Jillians. Only Dustless came out unharmed. Aizen's plan failed on the verge of success. Those Minos voids were actually tools he used to create voids. To create voids, he needed a large number of voids and Shinigami souls, but they were all destroyed in an instant. Just thinking about it made Aizen angry. Aizen's expression was gloomy. He wasn't happy that things had gotten out of his control. It doesn't matter if we kill him, but we don't need to do it ourselves. Gue Yanqing has a deep grudge with him. We can use him to get rid of that Dustless. Aizen Sokiai said viciously. Chapter 955. Complicated data was displayed in the various sophisticated instruments. It was extremely difficult for ordinary people to understand them, let alone understand them. Captain Aizen, the experiment is at a critical stage, and we don't have many Minos on hand. Shouldn't we go to Hueco Mundo and catch a few? Ikemura Jin said with a smile. The corners of his mouth were raised high, and his eyes were narrowed into slits. He looked like a cunning fox harboring evil intentions. Indeed. East Deity agreed after hearing this. Forget about going to Hueco Mundo. Although Kyoka Suigetsu's ability is invincible, it doesn't mean it's invincible. If we sneak out of Soul Society, it's hard to avoid exposing ourselves. Just like today, there's no need to do it personally. We can just catch a few to test, and we can also injure the Shinigami. It's the best of both worlds. Aizen touched his glasses and said expressionlessly. There was no doubt that once the Mino successfully invaded Soul Society, they would wreak havoc, and there would be endless casualties. However, this had nothing to do with Sosuke Aizen. He wanted to be on the same level as the gods, and even become a god. The life and death of mortals was nothing to him. The next morning, the sun was bright and there were no clouds in the sky. Dustless came to the 4th Division early after a good night's sleep. He thought there was a mission, but when he arrived, he was shocked. A large number of members were bored and gathered together to sketch and draw. They were having a lot of fun, and some were even arranging flowers. If I stay with you guys every day, when will I be able to leave the 4th division? Wu Chen muttered to himself. His heart, which was surging with passion, fell from the clouds to the bottom and shattered all over the ground. While he was distracted, a beautiful figure appeared in his eyes and pulled Dustless back to reality. What did Senjumaru say to you yesterday? You're so distracted, Chen-kun. A soft voice entered his ears. Unohana Retsu walked over with a smile. She had an amiable temperament, and the first impression she gave was that she was very friendly and approachable. Following behind her was Kazuto Toru, who was currently in the 3rd division. She was the future 4th division vice-captain, but because of Dustless's strong interference, her position was temporarily taken. Nothing much. We just chatted for a bit and asked about what happened that day. Dustless said with a smile. Unohana Retsu's expression showed that she did not know anything, which meant that Shudora Thousandhand Maru had been very tight-lipped about their conversation yesterday. It's that simple. Ripples appeared in Anohua's watery eyes as she asked doubtfully. This is definitely the truth. How would I dare to lie to Captain Uno Flower? Dustless guaranteed, his face not turning red at all. The doubt in Anohua's eyes disappeared, and she reluctantly accepted Dustless's explanation. She then looked at the disappointed Dustless and said, "This is the situation of the 4th division. Everyone spends their days cultivating their minds. Only when war breaks out can the 4th division truly shine. Letting an ambitious person like you stay in the 4th division is indeed a bit of a waste of talent." Unohua said sympathetically. Even if Dustless hit it well, she could still see the burning flames in the depths of his eyes. After living for more than 1,000 years, her experience was dozens of times greater than Dustless's. It doesn't matter. A person's life is always full of twists and turns. Let nature take its course. Moreover, it's not as if I have nothing to do. I still have a lot of things to ask Captain Unohua. Dustless said with relief. He still had not figured out the origin of spiritual pressure, so he could use this time to ask Unohua about it. However, everything was just as Dustless had said. A person's life was full of unknowns and hard to predict. Just as he became indifferent to his desire to become a captain, the heavens gave him face. Caw caw caw. The sky above the 4th division suddenly exploded, revealing a long and narrow hole that was clearly connected to another world. From time to time, the roars of wild beasts could be heard. Of course, along with the roars came a wave of spiritual pressure, and a large number of huge figures walked out from the hole. The figures covered the sky and blocked the sunlight. The entire 4th Division's building was dark and filled with despair. What is this? The members of the 4th Division hurriedly walked out of the building and looked up at the endless Minos walking out of the black hole. Their faces were filled with fear, and some of them even felt their legs go soft. The 4th Division belonged to the medical division, and their combat power was their biggest weakness. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Several Minos opened their mouths and spat out dangerous red light, which condensed into a huge red sphere. The blood-red light emitted a dangerous wave. Void flash. Unohua, who had rushed out with Dustless, was shocked. She gathered a high density of spiritual pressure in her palm and was about to use Hado to destroy the sphere when the sky was filled with flashes of light. Yasekani no Magatama. The dazzling flashes of light whizzed out, and Jillian, who was more than 10 meters tall and was not good at moving, became the perfect target. Roar roar roar, the surrounding Minos cried out in pain. Their bodies were mercilessly pierced through, and there were dozens of holes. Just one wave of attack was enough to take away a whole group of Jillian. How did these Minos invade Soul Society? Unohua said with an ugly expression. Compared to that, I'm more curious. When did Jillian become so smart? Dustless sharply sensed that something was wrong and asked Unohua. The 4th Division is a medical team. Their combat power is weak, but they are the medical protection of the Grim Reaper. These brainless Jillian chose to attack the 4th Division first. They are too smart. Chapter 956. Dustless was not the only one who was confused. Even Unohua Lai was confused. After a while, a cold light flashed through her eyes. Unohua Lai was a meticulous person. After hearing Dustless's hint, she immediately understood what he meant. I hope that Jillian's arrival in the 4th Division is just a coincidence. Looking at Jillian who kept coming out of the black hole, Unohua Lai prayed in her heart. Roar, the entire Soul Society was filled with the roars of great voids. It was not only limited to the 4th Division. The entire Soul Society was buried by the great void's attacks. Rice Bucket, what are you useless people doing? A bunch of great voids invaded Soul Society, and you guys didn't even know about it. How am I going to explain this to the head captain? You bastards are only fit to be experiment subjects. Mayuri Lai's furious roar came from the 12th Division. Through the surveillance screen, he could clearly see the sorry state of Soul Society. As if they had agreed beforehand, the great voids came from all directions, from all kinds of tricky and unexpected corners, wantonly destroying Soul Society. Mayuri Lai almost vomited blood when he saw this. His body turned cold. With such a huge mess, he would definitely not have a good time with the head captain. Shinra Tensei. The corner of his clothes suddenly bulged. A repulsive force broke out of his body, forming a perfect 360-degree defense. Bang! The red void disappeared. It was repelled by the repulsive force from Dustless's body. An explosion occurred in the distant horizon, and a blazing fire engulfed everything. Whoosh whoosh whoosh, immediately after, the first-generation ghost blade came out of its scabbard. With a wave of his hand, a huge red slash appeared, creating ripples in the air. Poochie! The dumb Jillian did not even think of dodging this skill. His mountain-like body was instantly penetrated by the red light and split into two. There are so many of them, Dustless's line of sight was locked within 1,000 meters. To his astonishment, he discovered that there were more than 1,000 great voids wandering around Soul Society. If one didn't know better, they might even think that this was Hushu Ring. Dustless chuckled in his heart. His dispirited mood was swept away. This was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for him to make a name for himself. If he could show off a little of his strength, he might be able to replace any captain that was killed in the future. It's time to retreat, Lord Qin. Just as he was lost in his thoughts, Unohua Lai's serious voice sounded. A black butterfly suddenly appeared in her hand. Dustless knew that this was the hell butterfly that Soul Society used to communicate with each other. Most of the members of the 4th Division are in hiding, so there's no need to worry. Head Captain, inform all division captains and vice captains to head to the 1st Division for an emergency meeting. With that, Unohana Lai used transient step to leave, leaving behind several afterimages in the air. Dustless furrowed his brows when he heard this. Soon after, he followed Unohua Retsu and left. With so many Jillians, it would be impossible to kill them all in a short amount of time. The atmosphere in the 1st Division's building was extremely tense. In the spacious hall, the captains were divided into 2 rows and stood in an orderly manner, their expressions meticulous. Behind them were Dustless and the other vice captains. The scene was abnormally solemn and heavy, and even the usually sloppy Jingle Chunchue had a serious expression on his face right now. The head captain, Old Man Yamamoto, was not as kind as before. His sunken eyes were bulging, and his eyes were bloodshot. Even though the head captain tried his best to remain calm, his body was still slightly trembling. The walking stick in his hand was also slightly trembling. The Ryujin Jaka hidden within it also sensed old man Yamamoto's anger and let out a clear cry. The atmosphere was even more terrifying. Everyone's hearts were in their throats. They were afraid that the strongest death god would not be able to suppress the flames and would kill them all in one fell swoop. This is probably the first time in 1,000 years that this old man is so angry. Dushless, who was standing behind Unohana Lai, thought. He could even see the veins on old man Yamamoto's forehead bulging. It was obvious that he was about to go berserk. It's most likely related to this old man. He's always happy to see things that are not good for soul society. Dustless muttered to himself as he looked at Aizen. Even though it was just an unfounded guess, he was sure that the mastermind behind this was Aizen Sosuke, the king of Hueco Mundo, Balegan. He was Vastolord, a predator at the top of the pyramid. However, he still had self-awareness. He knew the consequences of attacking soul society rashly. He didn't have the courage to confront the head captain. Vastolord could crush captains, but he was only an ordinary captain. Even the heaven-defying Vastolord was at the end of his rope. Captain Nya, after a moment of silence, the head captain's gaze finally fell on Mayuri. Mayuri was quite funny. He was afraid that the head captain would see him, so he retreated as far as possible. He even stayed at the same level as Dushless and the other vice-captains. But even so, he couldn't escape old man Yamamoto's eyes. Head captain. Mayuri's face was ugly as he walked out of the line. He looked miserable as if his parents had died. Dustless couldn't help but laugh when he saw that look of regret on his face. The 80th district of Soul Society's Drifting Soul Street was originally a remote area, and it was usually a place where villains gathered, so very few death gods paid attention to this area. Therefore, it was the only place for the Great Void to invade. From a long and narrow crack in the void, groups of Jillian walked out. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. After a while, many figures suddenly appeared on the open ground that was covered in blood and flesh. Can they do it? Wuchen said doubtfully as he looked at the death god ghost sect members who were preparing for the battle. He felt that this group of fat, big-eared, and strangely dressed ghost sect members were not reliable. No problem, the Keto are good at sealing enchantments. If they can't do it, then our group of medics and combatants can't do it either. Fuchsia, who was temporarily in charge of the third seat, said confidently, maybe we can't deal with the Great Void above Ajuchas, but dealing with Jillian is no problem. Dustless didn't say anything more and stood still like a statue. After a while, the Ghost Path sect members who had finished their preparations finally took action. They all used instant steps to rush towards the sky. After clearing out Jillian in the long and narrow black cavity in a short period of time, a transparent golden membrane covered it, repairing the broken sky at a speed visible to the naked eye. It's finally over. Fuchsia breathed a sigh of relief and smiled. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Just when everyone thought it was over, a dazzling light suddenly flashed in the black hole that was about to close, and a sharp sound like lightning pierced their ears. It blasted towards the transparent golden membrane. Boom boom boom. An earth-shattering explosion soared into the sky. The seemingly sturdy film was easily torn apart like paper scraps. The ghost Taoists who did not manage to escape in time were vaporized by this merciless flash. They were wiped out, and not even their bones were left. The destructive Ryatsu fluctuations shocked the entire Soul Society, and all the captains exclaimed. They encountered a great void. This guy is... A white figure walked out of the shattered black hole. Dustless looked up, and the great void in front of him was unexpectedly familiar. Did Aizen unify Hueco Mundo now? Looking at the great void overlooking Soul Society in the black hole, Dustless frowned and said. Under the perception of observation hockey, there seemed to be more than one great void in this black hole. The Ryatsu fluctuations were also different, and several of them were mid-level great voids at the Ajuch's level. After careful observation, he was surprised to find that among them, there was Vasto Lord whose Ryatsu density was much higher than Ajuch's. Chapter 958. The black cavity that was gradually healing was shattered into pieces by the void flash, revealing a bigger black hole. A shiny gold upstart walked out from it, his whole body was cold and shiny. Especially under the sunlight, his whole body was extremely dazzling. Looking closely, it turned out that there were countless diamond rings on his fingers. The king of Hueco Mundo, Baligan Ruisin Gang. Looking at Baligan, Dustless was somewhat surprised. It was not because he was afraid of his title as the king of Hueco Mundo, or because he was the top grand void of Vastolord, but because he was not afraid of death and his spiritual thunder hit Dustless. Looking up at the sky, looking at Baligan who was standing in the sky, this old man was not afraid at all. It seemed like he wanted to fight with the head captain alone. "Ants, who allowed you to look at me? Go to hell and repent." Lowering his head to look at the group of reapers on the ground, Baligan condensed an extremely dense black sphere at his fingertips. Due to the terrifying power, the void around the void flash was faintly distorted. "Go to hell." The demonic black luster tilted down and blasted towards the ground mercilessly. Boom! 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 The earth-shattering explosion swept across, mercilessly destroying Seoul society. The 80th district of Luhan Street was wiped out in an instant. The bottomless pit on the ground was particularly eye-catching, and the affected mountains were forcibly flattened. "A bunch of ants, you don't cooperate with this old man to fight." Smacking his big mouth full of fangs, Baligan said very disdainfully. The captain level was not enough in his eyes, let alone a group of unknown reapers. Whoosh! On the ground burning with black smoke, a golden light suddenly appeared. The light spread rapidly and evaporated the black smoke in an instant. "What the hell is this? It didn't die." Baligan's smug face drooped, and his tone was filled with uncertainty. Vastolord's void flash, not to mention these cannon fodder death gods, even the captain would lose a layer of skin if they were hit. The slightest carelessness would cause them to fall. And the reapers below were intact, supported and protected by a huge golden barrier. Whoosh! 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 A straight beam of light shot into the sky, and the sky seemed to have been shattered by a divine sword, leaving behind afterimages that would never dissipate. Then, an indifferent and emotionless voice lingered in Bailey's ears, lingering in the void for a long time without dissipating. "It's just like what you said earlier. You're not worthy to fight with me. So, go repent and atone for your sins in hell." Bailey was stunned and suddenly felt that his body had become much heavier. He raised his head and the scene that greeted him left him dumbfounded. Dustless was standing on the crown and talking to him in a tone that sounded like he was looking down on an ant. "Bastard, you dare to step on my head. You are courting death." Baligan, the king of Hueco Mundo, was infuriated. His trembling voice was full of shock and hatred, as dangerous as a barrel of gunpowder that was about to explode. Full of killing intent, the rapidly corroding black spiritual pressure broke out of his body. It was as passionate as the waves of a river, stirring up the flames of Baligan. Death's breath. The corrosive aura of aging surged into the sky, carrying with it Baligan's anger. It sprayed towards Dustless who was stepping on his head, wanting to erase his entire person. Naive, seeing this, Dustless's eyes were calm and indifferent, allowing the black aura of aging to wrap around him. "Humph, you dare to step on my head, this is your end." Baligan laughed coldly, revealing a touch of satisfaction in his words. Looking up, Dustless's entire person was destroyed by the aura of aging. This was an invincible ability. No creature in this world could survive being wrapped by it. Vice Captain, he, staring at Dustless who was swallowed by layers of black smoke in the sky, Brave Hush was shocked, her eyes were filled with despair. Not only her, but the Grim Reapers also had the same expression. Balegan, the king of Hueco Mundo, was known for his ferocity in soul society. Vice Captain Dustless is very strong, there's no need to worry. Brave Hush comforted herself, remembering that Dustless defeated the 11th Division's captain, Ghost Yenching, Kenpachi, and suddenly said with confidence, he'll be safe. Laughable, ignorant, safe and sound. You want me to be safe under my hands? Who do you think I am? I'm the king of Hueco Mundo, Balegan Ruisin Gang. Even though Brave Tiger's voice was as soft as a mosquito, it was still heard by Bailey. He immediately snorted disdainfully and opened his mouth. Just as he was about to use his mouth to teach this god of death who did not know the immensity of heaven and earth a lesson, a burst of eternal ridicule came from within the black smoke of despair. Balegan. Who do you think you are, always thinking that you're special, an omnipotent existence? This iron law may prevail in Hueco Mundo. But from the beginning to the end, you've got one thing wrong, this is soul society, not your Hueco Mundo. In the extremely corrosive power of aging, a ripple visible to the naked eye suddenly came out. Shinra Tensei. As the voice fell, the power of aging surrounding Dustless suddenly disappeared, and was easily bounced away by the repulsive force, revealing a handsome young man. Of course, there was also the flash of light that had been condensing at the bottom of his feet for a long time. Intact. Bastard. Are you kidding me? Could it be that you're transparent and can ignore the aura of aging? The shocked Balegan roared in disbelief, and his tone had a hint of sharpness similar to the roar of steel. Transparent. You're quite smart. In a sense, I'm indeed a transparent person, but to put it more technically, I'm a shining person. This kind of thing certainly won't work on me. Dustless replied indifferently, and immediately his body flashed with light, and swept to Balegan's side at the speed of light. The flash of light condensed at the bottom of his feet fell heavily on Balegan's head. Lightspeed kick. They gritted their teeth and fought desperately with the Minos voids. For a time, the Shinigami on the battlefield was in a state of defeat. It was strangely one-sided. The Shinigami captains who were rushing over from afar also widened their eyes when they saw this scene. When did the king of Hueco Mundo become so weak? That damned bastard. One day, I'll definitely kill him and avenge my humiliation. Kenpachi Ghost Yenching, who used Shuimpa to rush over, had a green face. He held his Zanpakuto tightly, and the muscles on his face were swaying, dazzling people. Originally, when he noticed a huge Ryatsu here, his first thought was to come and destroy the Minos voids and wash away the shame of being defeated by Dustless. Now, he never thought that he would become the best audience to witness Dustless's strength. He felt extremely uncomfortable in his heart. This kid. It seems like he didn't use his full strength that day. Unohana Retsu also put away her Zanpakuto. Her beautiful eyes were filled with light, and her calm heart was swallowed by the storm. At this moment, the ones who were the most upset were Sosuke Aizen and the others. Useless trash, he couldn't even fight back against a vice-captain. It's a miracle that he has been the king of Hueco Mundo for hundreds of years. Tozai wanted to curse, but Dustless sucked Balegan over and then bounced him away with a repulsive force. Such a funny scene was seen by Aizen, Tozai, and Ikemara Jin, who were rushing over, and they were angry. It's not that Balegan is useless. He is the famous Vastolord. Ikemara Jin was not the same as before. Although his face was still very sly and frivolous, his tone was obviously filled with caution. Vastolord was played like a monkey. Ikemara Jin suddenly felt that his brain was not enough, and his view of the world was turned upside down in an instant. Indeed, it's not that Balegan is weak, it's that his enemy is not in the same dimension as him. Aizen agreed with Ikamaru Jin. Vasto Lord's strength was well known, but the enemy was too strong. The situation this time is really bad. Aizen's expression was very gloomy. His eyes kept twitching as he looked at Yamamoto, Uno Hanaretsu, and Shunsui Kiraku rushing over. This was the first time in his life that he had this strange feeling. Beilegan was currently Sosuke Aizen's most important chess piece, and he was also using him to control Hueco Mundo. But it was easier said than done to let Beilegan go. Even Aizen, who had been calm for 100 years, couldn't help but burst into flames. He looked at Dushless with a murderous look in his eyes. Aizen's face hurt. Unknowingly, he felt like he had been slapped by Dushless. However, he couldn't say anything. Both of his plans had been ruined by this brat. Chapter 961. The person who stood up for Beilegan was the current 5th Division captain, Sosuke Aizen. Dustless laughed inwardly. He had already guessed Aizen's intentions. He quickly came up with a plan. Captain Aizen, Beilegan is an enemy who wants to destroy Soul Society. It's not right for you to speak up for him. Or perhaps, you were the one behind Hueco Mundo's perfect invasion. Aizen Sosuke's eyes twitched when he heard this. He almost couldn't help but raise his sword to chop this bastard who deliberately attacked him. Especially since he had exposed him in front of so many captains. After hearing Dustless's words, all the captains looked at Sosuke Aizen suspiciously. This guy suddenly stood in front of Beilegan. It would be strange if they didn't suspect him. Vice Captain Dustless, don't speculate. Captain Aizen's loyalty to Soul Society is clear as day. Dongseng scolded angrily. Also, you're just a vice captain. How dare you criticize the captain? Who gave you the guts? Did someone order you to do this? Everyone knew how to use dirty words. Dongseng was no exception. Idiot. Sosuke Aizen was expressionless, but he was cursing in his heart. Dongseng's words were pointing at Uno Hanaretsu. Over the past 1,000 years, Uno Hualai's loyalty to Soul Society was well known. Sure enough, just as Aizen expected, Unohana's calm eyes rippled with displeasure. Her lips trembled slightly. Just as she was about to speak, someone else took Unohana's place to teach Dongseng a lesson. Captain Dongseng, please pay attention to your words and your status. I don't want to hear such childish words a second time. Yamamoto's tone was filled with dissatisfaction. Uno Hanaretsu had fought with him for 1,000 years. Her loyalty to Soul Society was unquestionable. I'm sorry, Captain Unohana. I misspoke, Sir Head Captain. Realizing that something was wrong, each deity hurriedly apologized humbly. Deputy Captain Wu Qin, this is not a place where a deputy captain like you can meddle in. Seeing that his good friend was being reprimanded, Xiao Xiuan's Wuzhen immediately stood up and pointed the spearhead at Wu Qin. No wonder this big idiot was used. Dustless glanced at Sakumura with pity, but he was too lazy to pay attention to him. He looked straight at Aizen Sosuke. This guy was inexplicably covering up for Bailey, so he was definitely up to no good. Chunkuan is right. Captain Aizen should give a reasonable explanation. Uno Hanaretsu smiled and supported Dustless. Of course. I will give you a reasonable explanation. Aizen replied calmly. After organizing his words, he continued, as you all know, Beilegan is the king of Hueco Mundo. Imprisoning him is far more valuable than killing him. Aizen raised his eyebrows and continued, even if we kill Beilegan, Hueco Mundo will give birth to another king. Why don't we just control him and use him? The king of Hueco Mundo will give him face. Hee. I agree. I need a greater void to conduct experiments. It's not convenient to enter Hueco Mundo. With the king of Hueco Mundo's help, it'll be much easier to capture experimental materials. Mayuri laughed. I don't agree. Someone suddenly said. Dustless opened his mouth and organized his thoughts to attack Aizen. However, someone had stolen his script, and it was someone he never expected. Captain Withered, what do you think is inappropriate? Aizen didn't get angry. He always had a nice face. This had become a habit of his. No matter who or what he faced, he always had a smile on his face. Wuchen looked at Shimubaya in surprise. He swallowed the words that were about to come out of his mouth and continued to close his eyes calmly. We're Shinigami, and he's the king of Hueco Mundo. That's all. Byakuya said briefly, as if every word was valuable. He didn't want to say more. I also agree with Captain Shiomu's point of view. With the powerful Vasto Lord in Soul Society, even if Captain Nya can develop a tool to limit Bailey's spiritual pressure, I don't think it's safe. This is a blasphemy to the death gods who died in Hueco Mundo. Unohana raised her voice and wrinkled her nose. She was very dissatisfied with Aizen's suggestion. This old guy is just stalling for time. When the time is right, he'll probably let Baigen go. Dustless looked at Aizen from the corner of his eyes. He understood Aizen's intentions. Aizen needed to use his identity as the king of Hueco Mundo to manage Hueco Mundo, so he couldn't afford to lose him. He couldn't go to Hueco Mundo to be the king. He didn't have the time, and he didn't have the conditions. He might be able to in the future, but not now. You want to protect Baigen. Stop dreaming, silly child. No matter how hard you try, he'll die, and he'll die in front of you. Dustless sneered in his heart. Yamamoto also had a headache. The captains were clearly divided into two factions. He didn't know which side they supported. How about this? Sosuke Aizen's tone was filled with absolute rationality, making people involuntarily believe him, but when it fell on Dustless's ears, it was very strange, with a hint of conspiracy. How about we let the Central 46 Sages decide? You're tuning into the Journey of the Soul YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.